Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, House and Senate pass competing juvenile crime bills. Montgomery County Board of Education proposes a whopping 6% increase. County Council proposes elimination of parking requirements in transit zones. And the former mayor of Chevy Chase, Joel Rubin, drops out of the CD6 congressional race. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by Laurie Halverson, a member of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee, and former House of Delegate member and attorney Maricé Morales. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Overall crime has risen in Montgomery County for the past 3 years in a row. Auto thefts are up 131%, shoplifting 38%, homicides 32%, carjackings 29%, non-fatal shootings 28%, and non-commercial robbery 27%. What an exhausting list that is. As Lee Holland, president of the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 35, stated, people just don't feel safe in their communities. To combat this rise in crime, both houses of the Maryland General Assembly have passed versions of a reform package aimed at juveniles. Maricé, in response to an increase in crime, particularly juvenile crime across the state, the General Assembly has passed these competing bills that work to improve accountability. Does this anything adequately address the problem with juvenile crime?
Thank you so much for that question, Casey. At first, I just want to give kudos to Fraternal Order of Police President Lee Holland. I think he's a breath of fresh air. He's a millennial, and I have a great relationship with him. It's my understanding that, these two bills, the House bill and the Senate bill, they're both being sponsored by the president and the speaker. That is a huge signal that something is going to pass, okay? But as you look at some members that are more like on the more progressive side of the Democratic caucus, like Senator Jill Carter and Senator Charles Sidnor, for example, they voted against the Senate version in committee. And it's my understanding that, that's kind of, well, first of all, Senator Carter is a criminal defense attorney. And so it sounds like in actuality, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have juveniles stuck in a delinquency status waiting to be prosecuted, which never really happens because, especially for the children within the ages of 10 and 12, there's without a doubt going to be an opportunity for their defense counsel to file a motion for competency because a 10 or a 12-year-old, is just by the courts are not regarded to stand, competent enough to stand trial. Now, that said, I see, I'm very proud of the work that has been done in committee. My understanding that the only real difference between the House and Senate version is that the Senate version does require for the children, the youth offenders between the ages of 10 and 12 to be subject of what's called a CINS, which is Children in Need of Supervision petition, which creates all kinds of diversionary programs, et cetera, in lieu of a criminal prosecution being required. So I think there's a lot left to say, but definitely a version of these bills is definitely going to pass, just given the leadership that's behind both of these versions.
Well, that's very great, very insightful, and thank you for that comprehensive explanation. Laurie, Maricé touched on this. There's part of the bill getting a lot of attention, and that's how the state would handle auto theft cases involving children as young as 10 and 12 years old because of an increase in crime in Baltimore City. Is the bill going far enough?
Well, it's so hard for me to believe that 10 to 12-year-olds are stealing cars. I can't even imagine how they can reach the gas pedal. They're too short for that, probably. But it's happening because of policies that Democrats have passed to really let them have a pass when you're under 13 and you commit a nonviolent crime. There's no repercussions. So I know Republicans are supporting these two bills generally. They want diversion programs for kids age 10 to 12. But we really need to have accountability more than that. We need to have some form of punishment for these 10 to 12-year-olds that are stealing cars. We can't allow this to continue. So it doesn't go far enough. These bills need to go further, but at least it's a step forward.
Well, it was interesting. There's, a murder case that occurred in Prince George's County where someone was shot on a school bus, and the young person who committed the crime is being tried as an adult and sentenced as an adult because of the poor quality of the juvenile service administration. They didn't feel that he would benefit from being sent into the juvenile program. So there's a lot of issues around juvenile crime, and hopefully we can see a decrease as more and more resources are put toward those measures. We're going to shift gears to Montgomery County now. And last week, the Montgomery County Board of Education approved a 6% increase for the 2025 operating budget, increasing the proposed budget. I'm always astonished when I read these numbers. $3.3 billion, more than 55% of the budget goes to Montgomery County Public Schools, and a small sliver of that goes to Montgomery College. But a lot has changed since former Superintendent Monifa McKnight released this proposed budget last December, and that was adopted by the Board of Education. We have an interim superintendent. We've had a lot of turmoil in the Board of Education. But one thing that hasn't changed is the budget for MCPS keeps growing and growing. And of course, the Board of Education is a body unto itself. Laurie, Montgomery County spends about $12,200 per student, not an insignificant sum, but test scores are continuing to fall, and so are taxpayers getting their money's worth.
I looked back at past years, and in 2014, the budget was $2.225 billion, and it's gone up. The proposal it's gone up 59% since then. And when you look at inflation over that time, that's about 22%. So it's gone over double the amount of inflation, and we have nothing to show for it. In fact, things are getting worse. So something's not going right. And I think we need to really, really look at our Board of Ed candidates who are running to try to change the trajectory. We really need better accountability. We need to focus on the core subjects and not on social issues like gender identity that's been taking up so much of the air time at board meetings. It's ridiculous. We need to really focus on core academics, getting that up. That should be the number one priority right now. And the current board is just I don't know what's going on with them, but they're just out in la la land.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the situation with the current board, because the teachers union yesterday issued their Apple Ballot. And interestingly enough, none of the incumbents received an endorsement for the Apple Ballot. In fact, Lynn Harris, Sherba Evans.
Shebra. It's pronounced Shebra.
Excuse me, Shebra Evans and Rebecca Somdrasky didn't receive all incumbents, and they're running for, they're up for reelection, did not receive an endorsement. So Maricé, what do you think about this change in course by the teachers union?
Let me just say at the outset that I am, first of all, I'm a product of public schools, and definitely, pro union, etc. The issue here that we're suffering, and this is all throughout America, I would say, is a chronic dependency by the citizenry being told who they should vote for. And the issue with the Apple Ballot in particular in our county is, that the teachers union is able to bully people out who speak up against, and I'm a Democrat, right? Who speak up against the lack of, the quality of the services that we're receiving in return for the taxes that we're paying. I have been, I was elected. I have never received the teacher's endorsement. Why? Because I told them, even though they're my friends, and I tell them, we are leaving too many students behind. We have a literacy problem, and there's a disconnect between the curriculum that we're offering, right? And also, and the amount of money that we're pouring. So it's like the taxpayer, we're doing our job, okay? We're writing our checks. But at the end of the day, who are we holding accountable? And is that process a transparent one? Because, and remember, I know there was a mention about the school board. School board members make $10,000 a year. Trust me, the school board is not getting, this money. Okay, let's make that very clear. And when the Apple ballot goes against an incumbent, especially incumbents that have been not twice, but 3 times reelected, talking about Shebra and Rebecca, there's a reason why they are not being endorsed by the teachers. That's because there are folks that are speaking up and they're speaking the truth.
Well, and the teachers union, they want puppets. They want someone who
Correct.
does not have a lot of knowledge, really, who they can just tell them how to vote and what to do and how to run their campaign. I know, when I ran for Board of Ed in 2014, of course, I was not endorsed either as a Republican, and they even broke laws to create a PAC that wasn't even registered with the state. With the state, it was registered with the federal at the federal level, which was illegal. They paid for a whole mailing that went to all the citizens. So look very carefully at who is recommended by the Apple ballot, and there are quite a few people who are not recommended that really need some attention.
Well, it's just strange. You've both had experience in this matter, and that's great to bring that history to our viewers and our audience. It's going to be an interesting election with so many controversial candidates running for the Board of Education this year. When we come back from this short break, what has your county council been working on lately? We're going to take a deep dive into that. And 2 weeks after the filing date, we already have the first candidate to drop out of the CD6 race. Stay tuned.
When I first saw Turtle, my heart was full. Now anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with Turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
we discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things,
but they're all pure love.
Welcome back. The Montgomery County Council has been very active. This week, it enacted a zoning measure to eliminate parking requirements near transit hubs. It approved the funding for the purchase of zero-emission buses. It amended the right of first refusal to buy rental housing. And it held a hearing on a bill that would prevent police officers from seeking consensual searches of cars during traffic stops. Maricé, what do you think about eliminating this parking requirement near transit hubs for new housing construction?
I think it's a great initiative. I am a millennial and I live actually in downtown Wheaton. Even though unfortunately I still have to use my car to get to work, going down Beers Mill, but I can't wait for the day that we have a BRT and that we have less cars on the roads. Just bringing up the cost benefit analysis, and just if we're trying to create more space for housing, making sure that we're cutting costs when it comes to requiring parking spaces. Those costs are then being brought down to the residents. And so if at any way in terms of making space for more housing, but then also making housing a little bit more affordable, I'm all for it. I'm excited to see that, and I'm excited to see more development that also represents the values of the folks that want to live here, that want to invest here, et cetera. Not too long ago, I want to say 2 or 3 weekends ago, I was thinking about purchasing a second property. I have a property that's rented out, but I live in an apartment that I'm renting. And it's astronomical. The prices are insane. I don't know how people, with a 6.3 interest rate mortgage, it's nearly impossible to find anything livable for anything around $450,000 to $500,000. I was only able to see actual, not like standalone homes, but just condos. So the county is becoming increasingly more expensive.
Well, it's true, but I will say that, the idea that mass transit is the solution for our parking woes and everything is, I think, fanciful to say the least. Laurie, there was a considerable pushback also this past week in a hearing that was conducted against Councilmember Will Jawando's proposal called the Freedom to Leave Act. Even State's Attorney John McCarthy testified against it. What do you think of that bill?
Oh, it's just horrible. It takes away a tool in the toolbox for the police. And so many people testified against it. A number of them are my friends. And if you saw the MoCo 360 article, there was Reardon Sullivan, who is one of our Central Committee members, wrote an excellent piece about it. And as a Black man himself, he takes offense to it. And it's like, how dare anyone think that people of color will be thinking of the way this works differently than a white person.
What I took from it was and when I watched the video of the hearing, just that there was a lot of opposition to it and not a great deal of support for it. And so I think it's interesting to see if people who are the county residents who are now becoming more fearful of crime are looking to push back on some of these social justice programs. But we'll see what happens when the county votes. Maricé, another thing that the county is working on, and the fact they just approved, they approved funding for the purchase of zero efficient buses, and that which meant zero energy efficient buses. And they're a little more costly, a lot more costly. And is it a good idea to think that we can solve all the world's problems here in Montgomery County?
Like I said, I am all about mass transit. I think that it's about time for the United States to catch up to the world. I mean, you have Europe, Asia having these mass transit initiatives, and that's how you're gonna have to change the culture. It's gonna be a tough pill to swallow, but you got to change the culture. And this country is completely oil dependent, and we have to shift that. And I think the county council is living up to its promises. So I'm excited. And we, at the same time, the county is seeing a lot of changes. For example, we're expanding. Candidly, I'm a member of the board of trustees for Montgomery College, and our ribbon cutting is coming up April 10th of the East County. And so we are, the big institutions that create the economic makeup of this county have those expectations in mind as we're creating our strategic plan. As we're thinking 10 to 15 years from now, we're thinking about these types of initiatives that the county has taken, and we're trying to align those initiatives with what people want to see in the future, and who's the future? Young people, young professionals, young families. And that's what at least my generation is looking for, and I'm all excited.
Well, you mentioned the fact that we're oil dependent, and that's not a bad thing, Maricé. When you look around our daily life,
and electricity is oil dependent too, right? I mean,
everything, every property that we almost use there's a benefit from fossil fuels. So I'm going to take a counter view to this, because I think these buses, they're heavy, they destroy the roadways, they tear up their own tires, they're tough, they're very hard to maintain. And I think we're going to rue the day that we follow this pipe dream of environmentalism that's going to solve all the world's problems. I know you don't agree with me. We go back and forth on this forever. All right, let's talk about, this is a political show. So let's quit talking about economics and environmentalism. Let's talk raw money politics here. The race in CD6, the congressional race, has been heating up of late. At the filing deadline, the past Republican candidate Neil Perot entered the race. But it's April Delaney, whose husband, John Delaney, who formerly represented the congressional district, has begun running television ads and Now, the former mayor of Chevy Chase, Joel Rubin, running as a Democrat, has dropped out. What a whirlwind, Laurie, in the past 2 weeks. What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, it's Neil Parrott, not Neil
Okay.
Perot.
I was gonna say, you're making him sound fancier than he is.
Republican. And I
Well,
think.
I guess you didn't get my vote.
Well, you know what? Neil is an excellent candidate, and he really almost won against a mega dollars of Trone last time around. So I think he stands an excellent chance of winning the primary. Tom Royals is also collecting a lot of funds, so he's a contender as well. We have a number of great people running who are all, I think all of them are excellent, would be excellent in the Congress. So, but April, she's got a lot, I think people generally liked it when John Delaney was in office. He was a pretty moderate Democrat, and people are probably thinking that his wife will be the same. And I'm not sure. I have no idea what she thinks. We can't always assume she would vote the same way as John Delaney. So
Maricé, when I looked at the most recent statistics on fundraising, what stood out to me was just how much money Mrs. April Delaney has raised from outside sources, almost $600,000, and in some instances as much as some of the other candidates combined. So does this give her the tactical advantage without having to drop her own dough into the race?
First of all, I mean, I think it's International Women's Day. I think it's great to see a woman leading in terms of the fundraising. I think that's great. We haven't even seen her use any of her own money yet. So 600,000, I think, definitely gives her an advantage, and it shows because she's the first to go on TV. And I think going back to what Laurie said, I completely agree. I think she is positioning herself to be kind of on the middle of the road, going out, being able to go off of John, her husband's legacy. I think it's a smart one. I think it's a smart one. Now, is it fair? I don't know that it's fair just to be able to use a last name, but unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, voters, are just, for different reasons, are just not really fully aware of the options that they have in any election. And so Delaney, it rings a bell. Okay, I'll go ahead and vote for that. But looking at the folks that she has lined up as endorsers, they tend to be kind of on the middle of the road Democrats, and some of them being Western Marylander, I guess Mr. Perini, Hagerstown City Council member Peter Perini. I think that's impressive, and I think she's doing well in that regard.
Well, one of the weaknesses that the Delaneys have is that they never lived in the district. And I mean, my father-in-law was a member of Congress for 36 years. He got gerrymandered every 10 years, and he moved every 10 years to stay in the district because he thought it was that important.
wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, at some cost too. I might add.
That happened to me. That happened to me too. When I ran for office, I had already filed 6 months prior. This was census 2020. Remember the whole debacle with the new redistricting. My home is in Durwood, and they made a boundary on the district that I had already represented legislatively. I was 2 blocks away, and even still, there was a whole thread about me. Oh, this carpetbagger! How can I be a carpetbagger living in the county? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, but I mean, I got to say, I mean, Neil Parrott had represented this district in the legislature, so he does have name recognition. So that's an advantage that he has.
He's an engineer. He's been a civil engineer.
He's run twice before. So I think it's going to be a very interesting race when all is said and done. We've got to go to hard break now. Stay tuned for parting shots.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back. Now with parting shots, Laurie Halverson.
Yes, I was in Annapolis this week and also heard about some horrible things with taxes. The Democrats are trying to get a few things through that are just very sneaky. And one of them is HB 1515, which is expanding the sales tax to services like food and grocery delivery and hairstyling and legal and accounting services. So Delegate Moon is trying to do that, and it will increase our sales tax more than anything we've ever seen in the history of Maryland by 50%, costing $3.5 billion annually to our taxpayers. We do not want that bill to pass.
Thank you, Laurie. Maricé Morales, your parting shot.
Delegate Moon is a really good friend of mine. So anything that Moon put in, I was always about. So thank you, Laurie, for letting me know about that. Just talking about Delegate Moon in his district, we are opening the East County Montgomery College campus. We have our ribbon cutting on April 20th. I am a sitting board member of the Board of Trustees, and this has been a long time coming, and we couldn't be more excited about all of the coursework that's going to be offered there at the East County, trying to bring in historically, I would say, discriminated communities from having access to resources such as higher education. And I couldn't be more proud of the county helping with us, the state legislature helping us with this, and it's going to be great for the county altogether. Great,
thank you all. And by the way, the General Assembly just announced that there was a $250 million shortfall in revenue. So we're going to have lots to talk about next week on 21 This Week. I want to thank you both for being here. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 This Week, I'm Casey Aiken.